All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating two-part toolkit for success, pulling directly from the insights of entrepreneur Dawit Desta. We're going to explore how to blend the hard, practical mechanics of launching a business with the internal emotional mastery you absolutely need to keep it alive. If you've ever felt totally stuck, overwhelmed, or like you just don't have the cash to take that next big leap, well, this explainer is exactly what you need. We've all been there, right? On a recent broadcast, a caller named Saba hit the nail on the head with a question that honestly, almost every single aspiring entrepreneur wrestles with at some point. She asked, I want to start a business, but I'm confused and have no money. How do I start? It's a completely natural, very frustrating feeling, but it perfectly sets up the hardware side of our success toolkit. How do you actually build something from nothing? Well, Dawit Desta's approach totally flips the traditional script. So here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the tangible steps, starting your journey, testing if your idea is actually viable, and securing that elusive startup capital. Then, once we have that foundation, we're going to pivot to the psychological stuff, the emotional intelligence and mindset that literally dictates your long-term survival. Let's jump in. Starting off with part one, starting your business journey. And the golden rule here? Look at what you already hold in your hands. Look, we've got to bust a massive myth right out of the gate. So many people think you need a giant factory, a flashy storefront, or a massive bank loan just to call yourself a business. No way. Business is literally just converting your existing skills, your labor, or your ideas into a solution for somebody else. You have to take an inventory of yourself first. Ask yourself, what can I physically do right now to solve a problem for the people in my community? If you have the energy and the willingness to work, guess what? You already have a business idea. You start from the smallest unit of what you already possess. Which brings us to part two, testing your idea's viability. Because let's be real, will the market actually pay for your solution? Once you have your idea, say supplying clean water or fresh milk to an area that desperately needs it, you have to test it out. Dawit recommends doing a classic SWOT analysis. It's basically a reality check. You write down your internal factors, your strengths, like your unique skills, and your weaknesses, maybe your lack of experience. Then you map out the external factors, opportunities in the community, and threats, like your competitors. By formally putting all this on paper, you take the blind emotion right out of the equation and look at the cold, hard facts before you jump in. Moving right along to part three, securing your startup capital. The big one. How in the world do you fund your idea when your pockets are completely empty? This is the hurdle that stops most people in their tracks. Dawit drops a real truth bomb here. The idea actually comes before the money. It's a simple three-step progression. Step one, you identify your labor. Step two, you relentlessly promote those abilities to people who need them. Your own sweat equity and self-promotion, that is your initial startup capital. Because that hustle gets you to step three, partnering with individuals or microfinance groups who have the cash but don't have your specific idea or your drive. The money will always follow a validated, hardworking idea. All right, part four. Now we're making a massive pivot to the true driver of success, the internal software that actually runs all of this business hardware. You might think having the plan and the money means you've crossed the finish line. Nope, that's just the beginning. Get ready for this, because the science here is wild. Your raw intellect, your IQ, and your basic business know-how only accounts for about 20% of your success. That's it. The vast majority, a staggering 80%, is driven entirely by your emotional intelligence, your EQ. Think about it. You can have the most brilliant business plan on the planet, but if your emotional software crashes the second you face a setback, the whole thing falls apart. So what exactly is it? Emotional intelligence is your ability to identify, understand, evaluate, and control your own emotions, as well as the emotions of the people around you. Dawit calls it heart intelligence. It is absolutely crucial. It's how you make balanced decisions, how you survive incredible stress, and how you build relationships that actually last. It's your anchor. Let's break that down further in part five, the 4 pillars of EQ, drawing on Daniel Goleman's famous framework for emotional mastery. These 4 pillars cover the whole shebang of emotional mastery. First, self-awareness, simply recognizing what triggers you. Second, self-management, actually controlling your reactions instead of just lashing out. Third is social awareness, which is all about having genuine empathy for others. And finally, relationship management, using all of those skills to resolve conflicts and build real connections. Trust me, every single client interaction relies on these 4 pillars. Take a look at self-management. It is absolutely fascinating how ancient biblical wisdom perfectly lines up with what modern psychology tells us about restraint. True power isn't about aggression or conquering, it's about self-control under extreme pressure. A truly successful entrepreneur is the one who can stay patient and composed even when the market is in total chaos. It's the exact same story with social awareness or empathy. This timeless instruction tells us to authentically share in the emotional experiences of the people around us. Think about that in a business context. If you can genuinely empathize with your customer's pain and then share in their relief when your product solves it, you are going to build unbreakable customer loyalty. And that brings us to our final section, Part 6, Cultivating a Winning Mindset with Daily Strategies for Holistic Growth. Check out this incredible overlap between clinical science and timeless wisdom. On the science side, we have mindfulness and cognitive reappraisal, which, by the way, is really just a fancy clinical term for reframing your negative thoughts into something positive. And on the wisdom side, we're told to search our hearts in silence and be slow to speak. Honestly, whether you're reading a modern psychology journal or ancient texts, the goal is exactly the same. Taking just a few seconds to breathe before you react is a literal survival skill. So how do you actively program this winning mindset? Dawit says you've got to look outward. Study communities that are famous for their grit and work ethic, like the garage community. Find role models who have actually done what you want to do. Read their biographies, listen to interviews with self-made people. But most importantly, actually step outside. Walk around and observe what your local community is missing. The best business solutions are usually hiding right there in plain sight. Which wraps up our explainer today, but I want to leave you with one really powerful question to think about. What problem in your community can your unique skills and your emotional empathy solve today? Remember, you do not need a massive bank account to get started. You just need to take an honest inventory of what you can do, validate your idea, and lean heavily into that 80% of success that comes from your emotional intelligence. The tools are already in your hands and in your heart. Thanks so much for joining me to unpack all of this, and I absolutely cannot wait to see what you build.